All right.
No, we're gonna go in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Notice is hereby given of the regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Town of Westfield in the County of Union, New Jersey, at 6 p.m. on the evening of Tuesday, October 18th, 2022, in Cafeteria B of Westfield High School, 550 Dorian Road, Westfield, New Jersey. The board will move immediately into private session to discuss matters rendered confidential by state and federal law, including legal matters and personnel matters. The public portion of the meeting will resume at 7 p.m. The purpose of the meeting is to transact the regular business of the board and to transact any other business to come properly before the board. This is to advise the general public and to instruct that it be recorded in the minutes that in compliance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, entitled the Open Public Meetings Act, the Westfield School Board on Thursday, October 13th, 2022, caused to be posted at the office of the Board of Education, located at 302 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey, and to be delivered to the Westfield Leader, the Star Ledger, the Westfield Library, Town Clerk of Westfield, and Tap into Westfield and Patch.com, a meeting notice setting forth the time, date, and location of this meeting. Dana, can we have a roll call?
Sahara Aziz,
Here.
Robinaccio,
Here.
Mike Beelan,
Here.
Brendan Galligan,
Here.
Layla Morelli,
Here.
Sonal Patel,
Here.
Amy Root,
Here.
Kristen Sonic Schmeltz, Mary Wickens.
Here.
Thank you. And Sonal, will you lead us in flag salute tonight?
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I ask the board to approve the following resolution. Resolved that the Board of Education move into private session for the purposes of discussing matters rendered confidential by state and federal law, including legal matters, personnel matters, and be it further resolved that any discussion held by the board which need not remain confidential and the results of the discussion will be made public as soon as practicable. Can I have a second? Thank you, Amy. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, we are now in executive session. We're going to leave and we'll come back. All right, we thank you all for bearing with us while we were in executive session. We are now back in public session, and we will begin with announcements. Mary, do you have any announcements in front of you tonight? Yeah. Okay, Sonal, do you have any announcements tonight?
Westfield High School 12th grader Mackenzie Wilson participated as a moderator and speaker at a special event at the United Nations on October 11th for the International Day of the Girl. The event was called Mind the Gap, Girls' Rights Now, and Mackenzie and the other speakers researched, wrote, and presented their own speeches. The event featured activists from around the world as well as official representatives of Canada, Turkey, Peru, UNICEF, the United Nations Children's Fund, and UN Women, which works for gender equality and the empowerment of women. Congratulations to Mackenzie for her participation in this tremendous opportunity.
Thank you, Sonal. Layla, any announcements? Amy?
Yes. On August 30th, 2022, the Board of Education approved the contracted services of the Madison Institute to facilitate our district through the strategic planning process. We are excited to begin this important endeavor, which will bring together all members of the school community to work toward a common objective, a series of deliverable goals to shape the future of the school district. Please check your email inboxes for a letter from Dr. Gonzalez, which further explains the strategic planning process. Information also will be posted on the district and school websites, shared on district social media, and in local media. Also, please mark your calendar for 3 in-person stakeholder sessions to be held here in Cafeteria B at Westfield High School. Wednesday, October 26th from 3:30 to 5 p.m. for staff. Wednesday, November 2nd from 7 to 9 p.m. for parents and community members. And Thursday, November 3rd from 2:45 to 4 p.m. for students in grades 9 through 12. We welcome and need the input of the entire school community. Thanks.
Thank you, Amy. Rob, any announcements tonight?
I do. Congratulations to the following Westfield High School students who have been recognized for their exceptional academic promise as commended students in the 2023 National Merit Scholarship Program. Owen Craig, Elaine Degnan, Adrian Grip, Julian Hamilton, Audrey Jones, Grace Kilborn, Merrill Lee, Michael Lieberman, Cameron Linenberg, Mackenzie Wilson, and Sophia Shing.
Thank you, Rob. Kristen?
Congratulations to the following Westfield High School students who earned perfect scores on the recent ACT and SAT subject area tests. They are Aprameo Chakravarti, June SAT Math, Graydon Calder, June SAT Math, Audrey Jones, June ACT Reading, Rachel Malkazan, June ACT Math, and Iskandar Murtagavi, June ACT Reading. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Mike?
Yes, I have one announcement. The Halloween Family Fun and Parade event will be held on Sunday, October 23rd, beginning at 12 p.m. at Mindawaskan Park, which is at 385 East Broad Street. For additional information and to register, it's on the Westfield Police site. It's www.wpdnj.org/Halloween. The event is sponsored by the Westfield Police Department and the Optimist Club of Westfield. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Sarah?
Westfield Public Schools will be closed on Thursday, November 10th and Friday, November 11th for Teacher Professional Days, consistent with the NGEA convention. Additionally, students in pre-kindergarten through grade 5 only will have early dismissal on Monday, November 7th and Tuesday, November 8th for parent-teacher conferences. All students will have an early dismissal on Wednesday, November 9th, as staff members meet for an in-service afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Sahar. The next Board of Education meeting will be on Tuesday, November 15th in Cafeteria B at Westfield High School beginning at 7 p.m. The meeting will be live streamed via the district YouTube channel, which viewers can access on the board tab of the district website. The complete agenda will be available on Friday, November 11th. We're pleased to have with us tonight Westfield High School 12th grader Andrew Matus and his family. Andrew has been named a semifinalist in the 2023 National Merit Scholarship Program. He's among a nationwide pool of about 16,000 semifinalists who represent less than 1% of Westfield High School seniors. These academically talented students have the opportunity to continue the competition for the National Merit Scholarships that will be offered next spring. Andrew, will you please come forward to accept a certificate of recognition from Dr. Gonzalez? We also want to congratulate Westfield High School 12th grader Ryan Williamson, who will perform with the National Association for Music Education's National Choir next month. Ryan chose not to join us tonight, but we wanted to recognize his tremendous talent and thank all who have supported him along his way. And with that, I will turn the meeting over to Dr. Gonzalez for district administration reports.
Thank you. This evening, we have a few reports, beginning with report by the superintendent. This month in October, schools around the state celebrate the Week of Respect and Blue Ribbon Week as the commitment to ensure that our schools are safe and bully-free environments for students. We acknowledge this through a variety of activities that are sponsored at the school level, but we also, through the implementation of the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights, take the opportunity to assess our strategies and our initiatives and our activities in order to support anti-bullying in our schools. So this evening, there are two reports that I am required to provide, but I'd like to share with the public. They're hyperlinked on the agenda, so if you haven't gotten a chance to look at them, you could certainly look at them after the meeting. The first is the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights self-assessment. Each year, the New Jersey Department of Education requires that schools and school districts rank themselves according to 8 core elements associated with the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights. Everything from HIB programmings, approaches, and other initiatives to actual training on the policy, HIB-related staff, and HIB-related reporting. From that self-assessment, each school rates themselves according to a rubric that's rated on a scale of 0 to 3. 0 meaning that we did not meet the requirements, all the way up to 3 where we exceed the requirements. On the self-assessment report, you'll see that our school's self-assessments ranged from a total of 61 points up to 75 points out of a total of 78 points. So the next steps will include working with our new Director of Guidance, Fallon Balasone, who just joined the district a few weeks ago, to review the data, refine our practices, and work with our schools to continue to enhance our programs and experiences for both staff and students. And then in the spring, we'll receive the final grades from the New Jersey Department of Education, at which time I'll report out again. In addition to the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights self-assessment, we also have, on a biannual basis, a report of the school safety data system from a period that starts at the first half of the school year, so from really July to December. That's the reporting period 1. So I'm reporting out for reporting period 2, which was the second half of last school year. So even though it was January to June, it actually represents the second half of the reporting period from last year. And once again, this report is intended to provide just an overview of those confirmed incidents of violence, vandalism, substance use, weapons, or HIB. So it's a broad category. You'll see one number that encapsulates all those data points. There's also categories for any other incident leading to the removal of a student, as well as you'll see the overlap between this and the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights, which is looking at whether or not we had any cases of harassment, intimidation, bullying that were alleged but were not confirmed, as well as information regarding our trainings and programs. Again, each year we recommit ourselves to ensuring that our schools are safe places for students to interact and learn with one another. And during the Week of Respect, a number of activities have taken place. During our elementary school in our elementary schools, we had themed clothing days. You could find students and staff wearing sports jerseys to emphasize teamwork, donning mismatched clothing to show respect for each other's differences, and even at one elementary school, putting on a shirt backwards to indicate that you can't take back your words. Our intermediate school students engage in a variety of activities and lessons planned by the counseling departments and all designed to build a positive climate and reduce acts of bullying. And of course, at the high school, students participated in class-wide discussions of tolerance and respect, along with playing respect bingo and creating acrostic poems to ensure that the Week of Respect is reinforced. The one thing that I appreciate about coming to Westfield and being introduced to the Week of Respect here is we don't just stop at the Week of Respect. We're actually the Week of Extra Respect. And it really does send a message that we don't just celebrate this work just one time of year, but it truly is an ongoing effort and endeavor in our schools to ensure that our schools are safe places for our students. So that concludes my superintendent's report this evening. What I'd like to do is ask our business administrator, Dana Sullivan, to provide a brief budget development update.
Sure. So this year as you know, we've started budget much earlier than we normally do in light of the changed schedule that we're going to have because of the April vote. That does push up the public hearing as well as our initial budget that is due to the county. So in addition to our normal where we project out enrollment and we ask principals to give us their amounts for supplies and kind of more of the mundane stuff, we've also been discussing budget at every administrator and supervisors meeting that we've had so far this year. And we are asking for principals and supervisors to give us requests for next year's budget for things that would normally not even be included in a request because for the 2% budget, it was impossible. So that we will have, when we do put together the first draft of the budget, we'll be able to tell you what's in that first draft that hasn't been in past years and what is not included in the first draft, but has been requested by administrators and supervisors, along with the estimated cost of those items and, what our tax increase would look like with what's in there or what's proposed to go into the budget, so that the board can make some decisions about the budget. Probably you're going to have to make those decisions before we get state aid and be in a position where we can just fill in the state aid and submit the budget. So we're going to continue to have these discussions. We will continue to update you on where we're at, but we are substantially ahead of where we usually are since it's only October.
Thank you, Dana. Last but not least, this evening, as part of our administrative reports, we have our annual report on statewide assessment performance from the spring administration of our statewide assessments. This evening, we have joining us and presenting Regina Keycheck, who, for those who may find the name familiar, Regina has joined us as a interim supervisor of mathematics to assist us in ensuring that our teachers are supported, and also as we present this evening, that our work continues to progress throughout the school year. We also have Liz Riley joining us, who is our supervisor of English Language Arts, and together they will present this evening's presentation. So I'll ask them each to come up to the podium.
I could use my teacher voice. Okay, there we go. So as Dr. Gonzalez said, I'm Liz Riley. I'm the K-12 English Language Arts Supervisor, and the presentation that you're about to see was put together by Dr. Panero. He's unable to be here tonight, so I am stepping in to walk you through the assessment for spring of 2022. So our agenda for the night, do I have to move this myself? Okay, sorry. All right, wow, I got multitasking going on. Last time it moved by itself, so I apologize for that. So our agenda for tonight will be to review the various assessments that were given, take a look at the data that we were able to glean from those reports that we got, as well as discuss what the steps will be moving forward and what state testing will look like next year. Well, in the spring, technically next year. So this year in the spring, state testing resumed after 2 years of no state testing due to the pandemic. So there was no state testing in spring of 2020 or in spring of 2022. So in spring of 2021, excuse me. So this past spring, our students in grades 3 through 9 took the NJSLA in both ELA and mathematics, as well as Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. The NJSLA was also given in science in grades 5, 8, and 11. And there were 2 other assessments that are given. One was to our English language learners, the Access Assessment in grades K through 12, as well as the Dynamic Learning Maps, or the DLM, for those students with our most significant intellectual disabilities. So those assessments are the ones that were given and the ones that we'll look at today. For the NJSLA, the performance levels are levels 1 through 5. So level 1 indicates that a student is not yet meeting grade level expectations. Level 2, they are partially meeting those expectations. Level 3, they're approaching grade level expectations. Level 4, they are meeting. And level 5, they are exceeding grade level expectations. So when parents receive reports and when we as a district receive those reports, these levels are the levels that we look at. The next slide shows the ELA results for grades 3 through 9. There's quite a bit on this slide, so I'm going to walk us through it a little bit. So this is grade by grade aggregate for all tested grades. For each grade level, the Westfield scores are positioned above the state scores in bold. The table is organized by the 5 levels of expectations, and you'll notice that the final column combines level 4 and level 5, which is how the state reports out their data. So for example, if you look at our grade 3 students, you'll note that Westfield students, 68.8% met or exceeded the standards, while the state reported that 42.4% of the students met or exceeded the standards. And Westfield, as you can see, is above the state averages in all areas of those meeting or exceeding the standards. In addition to being required by the state to publicly report the scores of our students in the aggregate or whole population mode, we are also required to disaggregate them and share across specific subgroups. Exceptions to the reporting subgroup scores are indicated by asterisks. So this is where my ELA person learned a little bit of math. So any area, any sub-tested area that was less than 10 tested students is not considered statistically reliable, and therefore we do not report out on those. So you'll see in future slides where we do not have some information being reported out, and that would be the reason. So you'll notice that the economically disadvantaged group and the English language learners group both have asterisks, so we will not be reporting out on those subgroups. These are additional subgroups. And the reason that Black or African American has an asterisk there is because it is actually specific grade levels that were below those 10 students. So you'll see that there will not be reports in grades 3, 4, 6, or 9 for that grade, for that information. This is the first subgroup slide, and because we do not have state averages for subgroups available for comparison, what this slide shows is it shows stacked columns to show student performance ranging from not yet meeting to exceeding. So you'll notice the shading goes from a very light blue to a very dark blue. The very dark blue is the exceeding expectations, and the very light blue would be not meeting those expectations. So for this and our subsequent slides or subgroup slides, the deeper the shading, the higher of the number of students meeting or exceeding expectations. This is our subgroup for our Asian students in grades 3 through 9 for English Language Arts. And the shading on all of these slides is exactly the same in terms of the light blue to dark blue. And once again, this is our Black or African American subgroup. And the reason why we only have ELA 5 and ELA 8 is because of that statistically significant number of 10 that we did not reach. Our next subgroup is our white students. As well as our special education students. And I realize that's a lot of slides, one after the other, but they are very interesting to look at those performance levels by a subgroup. So now that we have the data, the question is, what do we do with that data? We have it in charts, it's in reports, it's in pages and pages of documents. So what you see here on the slide is actually a picture from pre-pandemic of teachers going through the data. And that's exactly what we've been able to do. We've been able to get together with supervisors, building principals within grade level meetings and content area department meetings to evaluate that data. And one of the areas that we look at is we look at a district evidence statement. So this is a district evidence statement analysis, and this one happens to be for math. However, what it is, it's a breakdown of the questions that were asked according to strands. So we do not know the exact question, but it tells us which standards were assessed and how we compared to the state on those standards. And they start with the most difficult and they move towards the least difficult. And we look, the green dot is Westfield, the blue square is the state of New Jersey. So we look to see where did we perform significantly higher than the state and where did we perform close to that state average, and then we dive into those questions and we say, how can we help better support our students? What are areas of our curriculum that we might be able to infuse some of that work into? Once a lot of that work is done, this is a sample of a chart that may have been made by a content area supervisor. So this one is a mathematics chart as well, and it targets not only the areas of strength, but also areas for growth. What areas did Westfield students really perform quite well in, and which areas do we see that we may be able to develop additional resources for them or targeted instruction in those areas? So these reports are incredibly helpful for sharing with building principals, for looking for grade level trends and district trends on a global level as opposed to individual student results as well. This is the part that I'm ready for. So elementary language arts, it was very, very interesting to look at some of our strengths and weaknesses across, because We do not have testing data for many of these students. We only have our Start Strong data, which was a very different type of test, and I think that's worth mentioning, is that the NJSLA does assess reading and writing, and within reading it assesses literary and informational text, as well as various writing responses. So it's research-based simulation tasks, narrative writing, and literary analysis. So it is a much more comprehensive test than the Start Strong assessments, and our students showed areas of strength, especially within their character work and their ability to identify character traits and support them with textual evidence. Many of these questions are two-part questions. Identify the trait and then give it textual evidence as to what that example is. They were also very strong in their general academic and domain-specific words and phrases, and their writing knowledge, which assessed the students' command of the conventions of the standard English language, including grammar and usage, was a considerable strength. Areas identified for support included providing a summary of the text and improving their understanding of text structures, such as why an author would choose to present information in the way that they did. These areas are addressed in the classroom through explicit instruction as well as detailed analysis of benchmark assessments. We continue to provide students with cross-curricular opportunities to investigate information presented in two texts, especially within science and social studies. If you're looking at researching the weather, you might look at two different articles about the weather and then compare them or contrast them. Through grade level meetings, we'll continue to identify curricular gaps, and our Achieve program provides students with additional instructional support. Our intermediate English language arts is our 6th through 8th grades, and one of the items that we noticed is that as the curriculum moves forward, areas of weakness for our elementary students became areas of strength for our intermediate students. And that was something, whereas in elementary school, the text structures was an area that for support, in intermediate school, we saw it as an area of strength. So it's a concept that does build and does grow, and we're seeing that in our students. It's also important to note that the transition to 6th grade is significant in what you would call a normal year. However, the 6th graders last year and all students experienced major disruptions to academic, social, and personal lives. The 6th grade and 9th grade students had the additional component of transitioning schools, which is important to note when looking at the whole picture with regards to our scores. Areas for support include determining the theme or central idea of a text. And in fact, I was already in a observation today, and the teacher said to me, I figured out a way to incorporate this into what we're already doing. And that's the work that we really want to do. We want to incorporate it in a way that we're addressing those concerns through authentic activities and opportunities within the curriculum that we offer our students. We see our students' writing skills continue to develop throughout the intermediate grades. Their scores on literary analysis, research simulation, and narrative writing allowed teachers to identify areas in their instruction where they can provide students opportunities to write in multiple formats. Our reading intervention program at the intermediate schools provide additional targeted support for developing readers. Those two teachers pored over the data to ensure they looked at each individual strand to really ensure that they were making sure that all students were assessed if necessary, and we were able to identify those. The cohort of 9th graders continued the trend of areas of support becoming areas of strength. The research simulation task, where they have to build and present knowledge through integration, comparison, and synthesis of ideas, was identified as a strength. And reading informational text, they performed well on the more difficult evidence statements addressed, including determining the central idea and analyzing its development. So once again, we see that progression happening throughout the grades, which is wonderful. Our English Resource Center allows for individualized assessment throughout the school year. It staffs periods 1 through 8 during the first semester and periods 1 through 9 in the second semester, allowing students an opportunity no matter if it's their lunch or their free period. Teachers continue to prioritize instruction to support weaker concepts, and elective and applications courses address student needs. Not that you don't love hearing me talk for the entire presentation, but that is the end of the ELA part, so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Kicek to take over for math. Enter.
Good evening. So I have the easier part because pretty much I can say ditto. If you look at this slide, it's very similar to the ELA slide where it's the comparison, the aggregate data for grades 3 through 9. Interesting. For grades 3 through 9. And the Westfield data is the top row for each grade level, and it's in bold. And we move from that to the comparison for Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. It should be noted, however, you can see that Algebra 2 scores are quite high. Westfield students performed at every level, at a level nearly twice as high as the state overall in Algebra 1 and Geometry. For Algebra 2, it looks super high, and that's because we only had a small number of students taking the Algebra 2 test. The math tests, what happens in math, as opposed to language arts, in language arts there's a language ELA 9 test. In math, there's grades 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. So students who were at the high school level, the 9th grade level, who took Algebra 1, Geometry, or Algebra 2 are the students that you see reported here, the data you see reported here. So we have a very small number of students who took Algebra 2 as 9th graders. And again, we have the subgroups, as Liz talked about. If there were fewer than 10 students, the data isn't reported out for confidentiality reasons, and also because you don't have significant, meaningful results to talk about. So this is the Hispanic data, Asian, Black, white. Again, going from the light blue, which means not meeting standards, up to dark blue, which means exceeding standards, and special education. So when we get to elementary mathematics, this is my part. We get to elementary mathematics as part of our analysis of assessment results. Areas of strength, areas in need of support, and methods for addressing concerns were identified as they were in ELA. Areas of strength in grades 3 through 5, the assessment results indicated strengths in the areas of whole number computation and using the 4 operations to solve multi-step number stories. Areas for support were number stories involving fractions or mixed numbers, and student explanation and justification. When I get to addressing concerns, there is an overarching concern that goes across all grade levels from 3 through Algebra 1, I would say. And that is the decrease, I would say, in the ability of students to reason and model mathematically. It's likely that decreases in reasoning and modeling at all levels were due to increased emphasis on skill attainment and a lack of collaborative problem solving. From March 2020 until September of 2022, students were not able to sit or work together. Therefore, there were limited opportunities for students to develop mathematical reasoning and communication skills, make conjectures, defend arguments, and justify thinking. One strength of the K-12 math program is built-in opportunities for collaboration. Since September, teachers have once again been able to guide student-led explorations and discussion in math class, and we're feeling that that's going to make a difference for these scores. In addition, incorporation of release test items involving reasoning and modeling will familiarize students with assessment wording and expectations. The elementary math textbook resources include spiral reviews, embedded practice, opportunities for students to share strategies and critique others' reasoning, differentiation options for readiness or enrichment, and 2-day lessons that involve solving a challenging problem that has more than one possible solution strategy or answer. In addition, just as for ELA, the Achieve program is in place to provide extra support to students throughout the year. The information on this slide pertains to the grades 6, 7, and 8th math assessments. It should be noted that 41% of last year's 8th graders took the grade 8 assessment, while the remaining 59% took the Algebra 1 or Geometry assessment. Similarly, 97% of last year's 7th graders took the grade 7 assessment, while the remaining 3% took the Algebra 1 assessment, just the nature of our program. So, results for the 6, 7, and 8 math assessments indicated strengths in the areas of rational number operations and developing algebraic solutions for multi-step problems. More focus is needed on geometric concepts of congruence, similarity, and translations, as well as on understanding and using proportional relationships. So to address concerns, again, providing frequent opportunities for students to work together will be beneficial this year. Collaboration on meaningful tasks will build students' abilities to reason, model, and communicate mathematically. In addition, incorporation of released test items involving reasoning and modeling will familiarize students with assessment wording and expectations. The intermediate math textbook resources include spiral reviews, embedded practice, and opportunities for students to investigate mathematical relationships, share strategies, and critique others' reasoning. Teachers use mini lessons to revisit and reinforce key concepts. Differentiated instruction enables them to provide targeted support to students who need more scaffolding, as well as extended activities for students who are ready for more of a challenge. When we look at the data for the high school math assessments, it should be noted that they reflect the performance of students from grades 7 through 9. For the Algebra 1 assessment, 43 of the students tested were 9th graders, while 57% were 7th or 8th graders. For the geometry assessment, 94% of the students tested were 9th graders, while 6% were 8th graders. And for the Algebra 2 assessment, all of the students tested were 9th graders. The number is less than 10, so we're not reporting that data. So in other words, 9th graders took the Algebra 1 geometry or Algebra 2 assessment. Algebra 1, there were 46% of 9th graders, geometry 52% of 9th graders, and Algebra 2, only 2% of 9th graders. The Algebra 1 assessment results indicated strength in the area of functions and related graphs. However, identification and interpretation of key characteristics of graphs is an area that requires more focus. The geometry assessment results indicated strength in the use of congruence and similarity to solve problems and prove geometric relationships. So as Liz pointed out in the ELA, something that was a weakness in one grade level now became a strength. Solving multi-step contextual problems is an area that requires more emphasis. And once again, a strength of our high school math program is a focus on student collaboration, from working together on practice examples to using reasoning and modeling to solve mathematical and real-world problems. Within the classroom, frequent opportunities to collaborate will enhance students' ability to refine, justify, and communicate their thinking. In addition, incorporation of released test items involving reasoning and modeling will familiarize students with assessment wording and expectations, so the same note for all levels. Outside of the classroom, math instructional supports available to students are workshop classes that provide small group targeted support, and the Math Resource Center, which is available most periods to drop-in visits. And you're back on. Liz is now the science supervisor.
All right. So the science data is very different from ELA and math, and it is important to note that. One of the pieces is that instead of having 5 levels that they report out on, they report out only using 4. So you'll notice that the slide shows level 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they report meeting or exceeding as levels 3 and 4. So it's slightly different. The other piece of that is that we have shown you Westfield compared to the state. There is one error on the slide that I do want to bring your attention to. In grade 11, for the state data for level 3, that should read 20.5, resulting in 28.9 for greater than 3. So it's not our Westfield scores that it impacts, but I do want, and we'll make that note on the presentation, so if you refer back to it, you will see that. So part of the challenge with the state data for science is that whereas ELA and math get the evidence statements where we're able to look at the strands and the standards that are being assessed, the state data from science does not give you any of that. So what Tom Patterson has done is he's looked at what some of those challenges are and how we can address some of those challenges within the classroom. So some of those challenges are that there are diverse question types and structures, multiple question parts. Single error means no credit, which means if it is a multiple question and you get part of that wrong, you get no credit. So it's a challenge in that sense. So part of what at the elementary, intermediate, and high school level they've done is they've really focused on those science and engineering practices and working to infuse those throughout the lessons. So you'll see at the elementary levels, there are strengths in recognizing patterns and relationships, while they're continuing to work on questioning and argumentation using the CER process. So for those of you that are unaware, CER is claim evidence reasoning. And I bring that up as the ELA supervisor because it is very ELA based in the sense of you make a claim, you get your evidence, and you reason that, which is very much what we do with literary analysis as well. So it's very connected. Intermediate showed strength in the area of modeling and argumentation, while they're looking to provide additional opportunities to reinforce and expand data literacy. Once again, we see that trend of area for growth becoming an area of strength, showing the strength in the articulation, the vertical articulation of the curriculum. And high school, the strength demonstrated in data interpretation and communicating while focusing on questioning and modeling. And that's done through department meetings, that's done through targeted SGOs, which are student growth objectives, and that is how those science and engineering practices are being built into a continued focus. So that concludes the NJSLA portion. We have 2 more assessments that were given to our students throughout the spring. The first one was the Access Assessment for English Language Learners. So the Access Assessment is given to students in K-12 who are identified for English Language Learner Services. It is a federal requirement that this is given, and it tests their development in 4 different domains. It tests their development in listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And therefore, we're able to see how their language acquisition skills are going and how they are doing. This year, we tested 42 students, took the Access, and they are evaluated using a 6-level rubric. So this rubric goes 1 through 6, 1 being entering, 2 being emerging, 3 developing, 4 expanding, 5 bridging, and 6 reaching. And 9 of our students received a passing score of 4.5 or better, and 3 additional English language learner students were exited from the program in June based on other metrics. So this is an assessment that gives us wonderful data, but also allows us to exit students out of the program by them demonstrating their proficiency with the language. Dynamic Learning Maps, or DLM, are assessments in grades 3 through 8 and grade 11 with most significant intellectual disabilities, those students that are unable to take the NJSLA due to their disability. We only had 9 students across the 4 grade levels take the assessment, so we're not going to report out on those because of that same statistically, and it wouldn't be statistically reliable with the low number. It does test state learning standards in English, language arts, math, and science the same way that the NJSLA does, and we do, it is state mandated. So now that we finished 2022 testing, we'll just talk about 2023 testing. So we do have a schedule for our 2023 testing. We are on track to test the same areas that we tested this year. One difference that you might see that we didn't report out on is that first row, which is the NJ GPA. So the New Jersey graduation proficiency assessment was given in 2022. It was later deemed that it would be done as a field test. So we do not have all of that data, and it is not a graduation requirement for students graduating in 2023. Beginning in 2024, it will be part of their graduation requirement, as well as additional pathways that I'll get to on the next slide. So once again, we'll be testing in NJSLA, ELA in math, science, DLM, and access. And those dates are there, and buildings schedule those independently. And this was the slide that I was discussing regarding the graduation requirements. And this comes directly from the State Department of Education. And with the addition of a graduation requirement exam or assessment that we have not had in the past few years, there are various pathways for those students who do not receive a meeting or exceeding expectations score on the NJGPA. They are able to have a score from an additional assessment, such as the SAT, ACT, or AccuPlacer, or a third pathway would be a portfolio that is done through the ELA or math department. And what's next? Our work has just begun this school year. Data has just come out. Meetings have just begun to happen. I know that, as I mentioned earlier, I was able to have my first department meeting, and I'm already having conversations with teachers about those areas that we have recognized and we are going to incorporate into our curricular lessons. The SAT, ACT, and advanced placement results are starting to come in from last year as well, that we will be examining and reviewing in addition to the NJSLA results, and those will be able to be shared in a future meeting. So I thank you for your time. I know it's a lot of numbers thrown at you and everything like that, but I do appreciate it, and it is something that I enjoy doing. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Gonzalez, do you have anything you'd like
Just
to?
if there are any questions from the board
Sorry.
for our presenters?
Happy. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
First, I want to thank you so much, you and the team, that both of you, for presenting, and also the team that put together the data. This level of detail is really helpful. I just wanted to kind of just note a few things, and maybe you could illuminate why there is what I see as somewhat of a notable contrast. In math, I just noticed that our students are performing much lower in 8th grade than in many of the other grades. And interestingly, it's in stark contrast with the geometry and algebra 2 scores, which are quite high. And so when I was looking at the K through 8, with 8th grade standing out as at least showing some pretty lower performance relative to other grades, but then algebra 2 and geometry are very strong. So I'm just curious to understand what's going on, because it's not consistent.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So at the middle school level, we have Math 6 for all students. And then we start to have levels in 7th grade. Actually, in 6th grade, the gifted component, the gifted program, we have accelerated Math 6 and accelerated Math 7, which means those students are taking the Algebra 1 test in 7th grade, and they're taking the geometry test in 8th grade. Then for students who have completed our normal Math 6, they are going into Math 7 or pre-algebra. Most of the kids in Math 7 are going to Math 8. Most of the kids in pre-algebra are going to Algebra 1, although there is room for movement up or down. So you have the students who are in the Math 6, Math 7, Math 8 track, as opposed to the students who are in the Math 6, pre-algebra 7, Algebra 1, grade 8 track. Okay, so those kids are taking the Algebra 1 test, and the other 40% of the 8th grade class is taking the Math 8 class. Now, these are students that, some of them do struggle with math, but typically they're students who just require more time. They're definitely on grade level, they're learning grade level standards, but they need more time to learn the material. So they tend to not do as well on this kind of a test as the other kids who are taking Algebra 1. And it's interesting because if you have students who are taking Algebra 1 in 7th and 8th grade, they tend to score higher than the students who took the Algebra 1 test as 9th graders. Same reason, because those students require more time, more scaffolding. They don't do as well in math overall, as the other students. So you do see this significant drop in 8th grade, and it's certainly, bears looking at over and over again, which we have done. So Liz, I think also on the in-service day in the afternoon, we unpacked all of this data. The 6th grade teacher, all of the teachers that I had, so 6 through 12, they were looking at the data, and they were looking at what was going on, what they felt the reason was for this being a strength, this not being a strength, and then coming up with plans for what they're going to do going forward. And the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade departments have a meeting tomorrow, so we're going to do more with that. Does that help?
That's very helpful, thank
Okay.
you. And I guess just finally, this is more of a comment, is it would be really helpful to see perhaps in the future comparisons over years in terms of our test scores compared to the state scores. Admittedly, when I saw the state scores, I thought those are not those are so low that
Yeah.
one should not use that as a baseline, as opposed to looking at how we're doing over time and making sure that we're, at the very least, retaining our percentages of level 4s and 5s, but ideally increasing them over time.
That's actually something that we used to do back in the day before all of this. So if you think about it, we had test scores prior to the pandemic. So we had, for example, I was looking at test scores from 2017-18, which was the last year of Park. And then 2018 through 2019, which was the first year of NJSLA. So you can't really compare them. That was pre-COVID. And then the next one is 3 years later in 21-22. So it's interesting for me. It was interesting for me to look at what happened between 19 and 22 in terms of the same type of test, but there was so much that happened in the middle of that. So it's really hard to look at trends. It's really hard to make any kind of meaningful points about what you see because the circumstances were so different. So now going forward, it is our hope that we're done with this, we move forward, and now we can get a couple of years under our belts and we can look at, what happened. So we have these results. All right, we try to adjust teaching, we adjust the curriculum, whatever we need to do. Hopefully that will have a positive impact next year and the year after that and the year after that.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
You're welcome. Anybody else for Matt? Matt?
She'll answer ELA too, if I ask really nicely. Any other questions? Yeah.
Just one quick one. It was just interesting to hear about, students sort of evolving and that what would be a challenge at a lower grade might develop into a source of strength. And I'm just wondering, does that hold true at the state level as well, do you think? I mean, as Sahar said, we don't necessarily always want to compare ourselves only to the state, but I'm just curious if that's a uniquely Westfield or uniquely a district like Westfield?
I would
Any insight?
honestly have to unpack the state evidence statements to see whether or not those evidence statements continued elementary through intermediate to high school. So it's not something that I did in preparation, so I don't want to say one way or the other. Part of how we were able to identify those trends is through teacher work, actually. And as the teachers created charts that they followed to show that, I was then able to say, oh, look, there's the word theme, theme, theme again. So really, it's the work that they did that helped us do the legwork to identify those trends. So, yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you
very
for.
much.
All right, Dr. Gonzalez, anything you like to address related to that wasn't covered?
No,
All right.
they did a fantastic job.
Yes, they have. All right, with that, we'll start committee reports. Rob and/or Kristen, do you have a SIP report for us tonight?
Okay, so SIP met on September 30th, and some of the highlights from our meeting included looking at a preliminary overview of the test score presentation that we just saw, reviewing each of the district goals for the 2022-2023 school year in relationship to SIP, and we discussed how we plan to achieve each goal and what indicators the district will use to measure such achievement. We also initiated an audit of our existing extracurricular programming to examine how our current offerings meet district standards, goals, and expectations, and to identify areas where the district might consider expanding
our offerings. And then our next meeting is November 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kristen. Mike, do you have a finance and facility report for us tonight?
Yes, I do. So we had our September Finance and Facilities meeting and reviewed a variety of topics, analysis of the fund balance and putting funds into various reserve accounts. We looked at our 2022-2023 budget review, including looking at our special education and our health insurance costs, but overall we're remaining on target with our budget. Started to review just very early on our 2023-2024 budget development process. There's no action required at this time, but we're just starting early on it. Briefly discussed the Edison Fields project, which just to point out, there is no action on the agenda this evening for the Edison Fields project. Looked at our policy and maintenance repair facilities, and also some soil testing that's going on because of some state guidelines have changed requiring some additional soil testing and remediation at the Lincoln School. And then there were also a memorial for the 50th anniversary of the Westfield High School 1971 class, and an honorary bench for Kevin Galasso. I just want to also point out a couple of donations. I can find them here. Give me one moment. Okay. So I just want to thank the Westfield Choral Parents Association for covering this expense of a 56-passenger bus rental. The School Boosters Association to purchase a new hydration system and a misting sideline fan for cooling the athletes at Keller. Thank you. The School Boosters Association for a new gymnastics beam landing mat, and especially for the Westfield United Fund, who donated nearly $40,000 to provide after-school tutoring and program at the elementary schools for the 2022-2023 school year. So those donations are really appreciated. They total almost $50,000. So there's a great help to the district and various things that we need. That's all. And our next meeting is scheduled for this Friday, October 21st. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And, sorry, give me 1 second here. And Layla, do you have a facilities, policy report for us tonight?
Sure. We had our policy meeting on the 29th of September. The first part of the meeting, we reviewed mostly updated or revised mandatory policies by Strauss-Esme. The only policy really of note to discuss and, just keep in mind is policy 0143.2, and that has to do with us having a high school representative on the board. So there's not actionable tonight. They're up for first read. We also spent some time discussing the board goals and reviewing them, and they're on the portal for everyone to look at, and they're not revised or to be approved tonight, but they were, we started some work on those goals as well. And the next board meeting, next policy meeting is October 27th.
Thank you, Layla. All right. Any questions or comments about committee reports from anybody? All right. With that, I will open up our first public comment session. During this portion of the meeting, district residents and staff are invited to address the Board of Education on agenda action items only. The board requests that individuals state their name and address for the record, the specific action items they're commenting on, and asks that all remarks be directed to the board president or designee, and not to individual board members or staff. The board asks that members of the public be courteous and mindful of the right of other individuals when speaking. Specifically, comments regarding personnel matters are discouraged and cannot be responded to by the board. Students and employees have specific legal rights afforded by the laws of New Jersey. The board bears no responsibility nor will be liable for any comments made by members of the public. If a matter concerning a district staff member is of interest or concern to a resident, the matter should be referred to the responsible building principal, the superintendent of schools, or the Board of Education, either by telephone, letter, or email. Although the board may not respond to items raised during the public forum, all public comments will be considered. Please note that if any member of the public becomes disruptive during the meeting, the board president may terminate the participant statement, and continued disruptions may result in a removal from the meeting or adjournment of the meeting. Each speaker's statement will be limited to 3 minutes in duration. If you'd like to address us on agenda action items tonight, please come to the podium. Again, there are no action items regarding the field. So if you'd like to address us, please come to the podium. Yes, at the end of the meeting, there will be a second comment session. Once we get through our action agenda, there will be a second comment session. Yep. All right, seeing no one come to the podium, the first comment session is closed, and we'll proceed with our action items. I ask the board to approve the September 20th, 2022 board meeting minutes and the September 20th, 2022 executive session minutes. Can I have a second? Second. Thank you, Mike. All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. And governance. Sahar?
I'd like to move items A, B, and C under the governance section of tonight's agenda. Is there a second?
Yeah.
Sonal, thank
All
you.
of them? Sonal.
Second, third, and fourth.
All right, any questions or comments on the governance agenda? Dr. Gonzalez?
I just want to quickly point out, because it's been 3 years since our last monitoring system in the district. QSAC is the New Jersey Quality Single Accountability Continuum, which represents the state's version of a monitoring system in place for all districts throughout the state of New Jersey. It's a 3-year cycle, and it begins with a self-evaluation and is followed up by a site visit by the New Jersey Department of Education's County Office of Education. So what you'll see on this agenda this evening is just the submission of a self-evaluation, which is just where we see ourselves in relation to the instrument that is used. I do want to point out that in the attachment, you'll notice that we rated ourselves 100% in all categories, but you'll notice instruction and programming is an alarming 40%. The reason that is because the other 60% is graded by the state directly. So we were really only able to grade ourselves on 40%. So we have 40 out of 40%. So in essence, we have self-evaluated ourselves as being compliant in all areas. But I did want to add that nuance, as it may not be understood by most.
And just on that as well, on our self-evaluation, you'll see the possible points, 4, 6, 8, whatever it is. The way the spreadsheet is set up is it's a 1 or a 0 in our self-evaluation. So we're not giving ourselves 1 point, we're giving ourselves all the points. We're essentially checking a box, but it's not the way it's formatted. So if you're reading line by line, it looks like we're rating ourselves much lower than we are. It's just the way the spreadsheet's programmed. All right, with that, Dana?
Sahar Aziz,
Yes.
Rob Bonaccio,
Yes.
Mike Beelan,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Leila Morelli,
Yes.
Sonal Patel,
Yes.
Amy Root,
Yes?
Kristen Sonic-Schmeltz,
Yes.
Mary Wickens.
Yes.
Thank you. And I believe Sonal, personnel?
I'd like to move items A through T under the personnel section of tonight's agenda. Can I have a second? Amy? Okay, Dr. Gonzalez, is there anything you'd like to highlight?
Yes, under item M this evening, we will be including the approval of our new Assistant Business Administrator. Patricia Ramos is our current Assistant Business Administrator, and she has been vetted through a committee of administrators and is being recommended as our new Business Administrator effective January 1st. As the superintendent who is responsible for all things related to the school district, I am thrilled to have Ms. Ramos joining us and picking up the tradition of fiscal excellence set forth by Dana Sullivan. Her experience as an assistant business administrator for the last 19 years in the Livingston School District has translated very well into her successful transition here in Westfield over the last several months since her arrival. It is important to note that she was a member of a number of viable candidates who had experience in comparably sized districts, in districts with budgets similar in size to our district. Some who had experience as an assistant business administrator, some who had experience as a school business administrator, but I'm thrilled to report that Ms. Ramos stood head and shoulders above everyone, and I'm thrilled to recommend her this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. Any questions on the personnel agenda? All right, Dana?
Sahar Aziz,
Yes.
Robinaccio,
Yes.
Mike Beelan,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Layla Morelli. Yes. Sonal Patel.
Yes.
Amy Root,
Yes?
Kristen Sonic-Schmelz,
Yes.
Mary Wickens.
Yes.
Thank you. Congratulations, Patty. God. Okay, we're thrilled you've joined us and that you'll be taking over for the incredibly large shoes to fill, Dana Sullivan. Figurative speaking, yes. Thank you. All right. Mike?
Sure. For finance and facilities, I'm asking the board to approve items A through U. Do I have a second? Who?
Rob?
Oh, all right, Kristen. Any questions or items for discussion? No. Okay. Dana, can we have a vote?
Sahar Aziz,
Yes.
Robinaccio,
Yes.
Mike Beelan,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Layla Morelli,
Yes.
Sonal Patel,
Yes.
Amy Root,
Yes?
Kristen Sonic-Schmelz,
Yes.
Mary Wickens.
Yes.
Thank you. Layla?
Item A, policies 1 through 16 are just, I'm sorry. I'd just like the board to consider item A, policies 1 through 16, which are for first review only. Can I get a second?
Sonal? Thank you. Any questions?
Sahar Aziz,
Yes.
Robinaccio,
Yes.
Mike Beelan,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Layla Morelli,
Yes.
Sonal Patel,
Yes.
Amy Root,
Yes?
Kristen Sonic-Schmelz, Mary Wickens.
Well, yes. Yes.
All right.
I turned my thing off instead of on.
Kristen, you don't get to vote twice.
I didn't think you heard the first one.
All right. All right, thank you. Sip?
We'd like the board to consider action items A and B. A is the approval of 2 intern student-teacher positions, one at Wilson and one at McKinley. And B is the approval of the district's nursing service plan. Can I get a second? Layla? And does anyone have any questions? Great, let's vote.
All right.
Sahar Aziz,
Yes.
Robinaccio,
Yes.
Mike Beelan,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Layla Morelli,
Yes.
Sonal Patel,
Yes.
Amy Root,
Yes?
Kristen Sonic-Schmelz,
Yes.
Mary Wickens.
Yes.
All right. I ask the board to note the notes for the record. Any unfinished business? Any new business? Rob?
Not quite sure where this necessarily fits, but just 2 things, kind of 2 very different things. One is the process for committee reports and just committee discussions has been, I think, significantly improved upon this year. One of the reasons that we're able to, look through these items and make very, quick and informed decisions on them is because our committees are taking a lot more time prior to our meetings to meet, to get information out to board members who aren't necessarily serving on some of these committees, and giving a chance to, for members to discuss as best they can to get information where they might have questions on some of these reports. I don't have a lot of experience on this board, but I've certainly been told from other folks that this is a very, very different, situation. And I want to thank our board leadership. I want to thank our district leadership for that. We as chairs of committees also had a meeting, I guess it was a few weeks ago, just to get us in sync for, what expectations ought to be and how we might want to help inform each other a little bit better. So I think, just going through these items, as I'm reading them, I haven't quite felt as informed, or I shouldn't say, I feel more informed, frankly, than ever. It's probably more accurate. To make these decisions and go through it. So I want to make sure folks understand exactly, the level of work that's now going on behind the scenes. Not that there weren't efforts made before, but it's just made things a lot easier for board members to communicate, through these means to get answers to questions. On a sort of different note from communication, and Mary and I have talked about this a bit. So we have a lot of folks here to talk about Edison, I'm sure. And a lot of different opinions on it, and I'm sure just the sheer number of people here who are interested in the fields, it shows just how important an issue it is to most folks. We haven't been presented with a proposal yet, right? And as Mike said, there's no real action items here, but this board is getting an opportunity to speak to the engineers who prepared a report, the CME report that's out there, and the administration. We are being given that opportunity in, I will say, small groups. I think it's next week on November 1st. I am very much in support of a opportunity for whatever we're presented to be presented to the public here. However you fall on it, I think given the amount of time that's been put into this, the amount of discussion that's here and the amount of questions that are going to be asked. Again, I'm not, it's no comment on good, bad, or anything in between. The more information that you have, the easier it's going to be to educate yourself on what it is that, what your thoughts are. In some cases, it will make sure that the expectations you think you have for what's going on are what they are. In others, it will be, getting questions that may raise a concern about a report answered so that you can make your decision either way. I am, look, my hope is that this is not the only time that this board gets to present and hear back and forth, from the public, or at least have the public hear the deliberation back and forth regarding what's going on here before a vote is cast. I think it'd be a shame to do that the same day that we do vote, whenever that proposal comes our way. And I will stress, there is no proposal for us to work from at this point. Just information to continue to gather. So I am happy, just, if any, my email is available on the district website. If folks have questions that you'd like me to ask, send me an email, and I'm happy to ask them in the session, and I'm happy to get back to you with whatever the results are. But I just wanted to get that out there. We're talking about communication as district goals, and I think the way we're handling our committee reports is great. I just want to make sure we carry that through to this process as well.
Thank you, Rob. Any questions or comments on Rob's comment? All right. Liaison reports? Mike?
Yeah, I just want to, last week, the Temple Emmanuel had their annual sukkah, and they had invited elected representatives from the school board, the town council, and I believe some other town officials. And they had a nice lunch for us, and it was a good way for us to reach out to the community. Myself and Dr. Gonzalez attended, and it's really important that we continue to attend these events so that we hear from the community on their concerns and what they like about what we're doing right in the school district. So I just want to formally thank them.
Thank you, Mike. Any other liaison reports tonight? All right. With that, we'll open up this portion of the meeting to members of the public on any topic. The board requests that individuals state their name and address for the record, and asks that all remarks be directed to the board president or designee. The board asks that members of the public be courteous and mindful of the rights of other individuals in speaking. Specifically, comments regarding personnel matters are discouraged and cannot be responded to by the board. Students and employees have specific legal rights afforded by the laws of New Jersey, and the board bears no responsibility, nor will it be liable for any comments made by members of the public. If a matter concerning a district staff member is of interest or concern to a resident, the matter should be referred to the responsible building principal, the superintendent of schools, or the Board of Education, either by telephone, letter, or email. Although the board may not respond to items raised during this public forum, all public comments will be considered. Each speaker's statement will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes in duration. Again, please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, Ken Warren. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Can you hear me now? Ken Warren, 5 Doris Parkway. Good evening, Board. I'm here to briefly speak about this Board's voting and review process for the proposed Edison Sports Complex. As you know, the field proposal is being presented to this Board prior to your voting on it. But word has it, and I hope that this is wrong, but Mr. Bonaccio said it's not, is that the presentation is being scheduled by the Town Council to you behind closed doors in 2 sessions within the next week or 2. And why? To accommodate that vote to take place for the next November meeting. And again, why are all these machinations taking place? To expedite the vote for a single board member who is moving out of state and closing on her house 3 days after the scheduled vote. A 30-year decision being made for the town 3 days before this BOE member leaves town. 3 days. It's not difficult to imagine, as we all do when we close on a house, that she will already have packed and moved out of her house by this time, coming to this meeting either from a hotel room or a friend's house. How does this perception of impropriety positively benefit this board and this town? How is this even close to ethical? Word also has it that the mayor, in a meeting with a member of this board, has, quote, sweetened the pot with pilot money in an effort to sway your vote. Did this mean that if you don't vote for the field, she's going to deprive our student of certain bells and whistles? This board should not be pandering to the mayor for money. It must remain strong and independent. Mayor Brindle herself has said it's important to remember that the schools will always be funded. By the law, the Board of Education is guaranteed full funding of its budget regardless of what the municipality collects. This all reeks of unethical and non-transparent cronyism. Say what you want about the field, whether you're for it, as these student athletes are and club parents are, or against it, as other residents might be. This board owes it to the public to be transparent. Anything that falls even an inch short puts in doubt every decision this board has made and will make. Once this board's reputation is questioned, everything you do and say will be questioned. This board reputation, above all else, must be protected. It's all it has. Every action it takes must be beyond reproach. As an overall board, as the president of this board, don't set a precedent for unethical decision-making. Not on your watch. Your ethical responsibility must always be to the children and the entire Westfield public. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warren.
Good evening. My name is Corinne Varley. I'm a PE teacher at Edison as well as the varsity field hockey coach at Westfield High School. The current Edison grass fields are currently used for recess and football practice. Contrary to what many think, it is not used for phys ed. Edison phys ed uses Keller, the turf field. As the Edison field is a huge piece of land that has so much potential for PE students and athletics. It would allow Keller to not be overused, give more turf availability to Westfield High School athletics and rec programs, and allow athletes to be in closer proximity to the trainers, locker rooms, etc. Edison's mission statement is also excellence in activities and the arts. Academics, activities, and the arts. So providing those resources for our students would be in conjunction with our mission statement. Turf is the preferred playing surface for field hockey. The game is faster and athletes can perform more intricate elimination skills. Playing on turf also provides better ball control as it is a more consistent, flatter surface versus grass, which can have divots and can lift the ball in an unsafe manner. In the fall, there are 6 teams that need to use Keller Stadium for practices and games. Once the season is in full swing, If the turf at Keller isn't available, we are displaced and aren't able to practice the necessary skills we need to make our program successful. In addition, when it rains, our 8th grade and 9th grade teams typically have to cancel practice, further hindering the overall progression of the program. As a matter of fact, when we are displaced to the high school field, we are not, as the varsity team, are not guaranteed the whole field or even a half a field, since our 8th and 9th grade teams practice there. Sometimes it's a small portion of the field for 40 girls. It's not practical since only 2 fields in the entire town are lined for our sport. For us, playing on grass actually hurts our sport. Having this additional turf facility that Westfield High School sports can utilize would be a game changer for field hockey in Westfield, amongst other sports. This year, I started a youth feeder program with the PAL, and out of the 16 towns involved in the league, we are one of 2 teams that plays on grass. This turf project would benefit so many young field hockey players and athletes, and I urge the board to pass this project when it does come to a vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Chloe Martin, and I'm a freshman on the JV field hockey team. I spoke last week at the town council meeting, and I'm here again tonight because I believe our town, with its current and future proud, talented athletes, deserve the right tools to enable our athletes to practice in their own town, regardless of the weather, and get the proper fields we need to avoid injuries and continue to make our town proud. Studies have shown that participating in sports keeps kids healthier mentally and physically, and keeps kids out of trouble. Are you waiting for some tragedy to happen to approve this? Do you know what it's like to race across town at all hours of the day to get to practice? Or what it's like when you watch your star player break a leg or roll an ankle on our terrible grass fields? It's so frustrating to aspire to be such amazing athletes, but have nowhere to practice. Let's come together, Westfield, and get this done. Other towns have made this happen. Why can't we? Thank you.
Thank you. And just again, name and address for the record.
Okay. Hi, my name is Sydney O'Connor. I live at 639 Shadowland Drive. I play lacrosse and field hockey at the Westfield High School, both sports that would extremely benefit from the use of turf. In Westfield, there are 6 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, and 1 high school, not to mention the whole Tamaulipas Park complex. The least we could do is make one of these many grass fields into turf fields. Edison is the perfect place for turf because it is located right across the street from Keller Stadium, where all of our equipment, trainers, and locker rooms are. In the past meetings, some counter arguments that have been said are that the NFL and the Pro Soccer League play on grass. That is such an unfair argument towards us student athletes when the grass that the pros play on is perfectly trimmed and polished before each game. Who's going to perfectly polish our field every time before a game? It's unrealistic and unfair to compare us to players at that level. Our field hockey team recently visited ALJ and Union and many other towns for away games, only to discover the new turf fields in the making. Westfield is a town known for their sports, so let's take advantage of that. Let's create more turf fields for our players to advance and to represent Westfield. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Zach Feldman, and I live at 972 Woodmere Drive. I also shared this with the mayor and town council last week, but I wanted to make sure you heard it also. I'm in 4th grade at Franklin. I love to play sports. I play soccer, basketball, baseball, lacrosse, and flag football in Westfield. I need to tell you why we need new fields at Edison. I practice and play soccer at Sid Fay Houlihan Elm Street, and soccer and baseball at Tamaulipas. I practice and play lacrosse at the high school grass field and Sid Fay Houlihan. Some of our practices and games that are on grass get canceled because of the rain. The fields take a few days to dry out after rainstorms. For soccer home games, we play at Garwood and Wardlaw in Edison. For lacrosse, we play many home games at Ponderosa and Scotch Plains. New turf fields with lights at Edison will let kids practice and play games in Westfield. Less long car rides and take more pride in showing our beautiful hometown when we play other teams. Please approve to this project for kids like me and all the kids who will play on these fields for years. Thank you.
Hi, Barbara Wellnitz, 739 Carlton Road. I am one of the co-presidents of the Band Parents Association, but I don't claim to speak on behalf of the entire board, so I want to make that clear. I have had many discussions with the band directors over my many years being involved with the band. And I know somebody at the town council meeting mentioned there are plenty of open spaces to have other fields. That doesn't work for the marching band. It takes 2 or 3 box trucks just to move our equipment. So to propose, oh, just go practice somewhere else, that doesn't work. We are situated at Edison Intermediate School. That's where we have to practice. On the rare occasions we get to practice on Keller, it's after a football game when no one else is using it. So it's not ideal. We almost exclusively practice on grass, but all of the competitions that we go to are on turf. Our current field is not flat. Half the field is the baseball infield, which is often soggy and muddy. We lose rehearsal time throughout the season when it rains. After it rains, because the field doesn't drain well, it continues to be unusable. So the kids don't get their practice time, which they need, because we are competing against bands that are practicing on turf, lit fields, the whole kit and caboodle. The staff leads rehearsal from temporary construction scaffolding that's been up for the last 10 years. The district is also currently paying for temporary storage units and overtime building access to accommodate the band at EIS. A building as proposed with storage, bathrooms, and field power access would reduce that need. It also would make it a safer environment for the band. We come back from competitions late at night, there is no light behind the school. So we have parents holding phones with their flashlights, headlamps, so that we can move the equipment back into the storage pods. It's not ideal. Somebody's going to get hurt. Every year, our student leaders are putting lines on the field, and they have to redo that every time it rains and before every practice, which costs about $600 per season just for painting the lines. I know there are a lot of reasons to be against the turf. We have too many people that need it. And it's something that needs to be done. Something needs to be done about these fields. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Liz Chaco. I live at 836 Tice Place. I'm on the Rec Commission and on the Green Team. Tonight I'm speaking to you as a parent. I have 2 kids, ages 9 and 12, in the soccer community, and I'm very excited about the turf fields proposal. My kids at times get home from practice at 9:30 from other towns and end up going to bed on some school nights at 10:30, so I'm really speaking in support of them and their health. We live near Edison, and we consider Keller a fantastic neighborhood asset where we play sports as a family. My kids walk there often to meet their friends to play. Having another turf option in town would help relieve capacity issues and provide another spot for our kids to practice. If you go to these other towns like Summit and Milburn, they have multiple lit turf fields. The other day we were there for a soccer game. The lights for some reason couldn't turn on. We went to another field that was lit and turf. So we were able to keep the game. And I hope that same thing can happen for Westfield. So when some people look to move to Westfield, they feel Westfield is a very well-rounded option. We have very strong schools, we have a great downtown, charming neighborhoods, and also a very, very strong sports program. Sports are a vital part of this town and an attraction to new residents. So I really hope we can continue to progress and move forward to continue to support our athletes and meet their needs. I hope you'll really consider the turf fields at Edison for the kids and the needs of our sports community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jerome Fader, 789 Knollwood Terrace. I have the property just behind Edison School. I'm a 40-plus year resident. My 2 children attended Edison. The path and the bridge between Knollwood and the schoolyard run across my front lawn. Students use these to get to school, and I use them to get to my house. Creek is maintained by the town. Path is maintained by the Board of Education. I wanted to compare maintenance between the two. to look at the transfer of maintenance responsibilities, which is one of the things I believe is under consideration. But I feel like a bit of a disadvantage because some of the information with respect to pilot funding and so forth is critical to know, and I don't understand what the funding on these two, which I think you need to know before you make a decision. Despite turf complaints, the Edison graph is cut, the baseball field is groomed for many activities. By comparison, the creek banks, which is maintained by the town, are severely deteriorated, and this is despite many complaints. A 3-foot section of my front lawn has fallen into the creek. So if you look at the creek and the path, would town maintenance be an improvement? This places a sports field financials in competition with other town needs, and it's unclear that the proposed arrangements will yield field improvements. And at least the Board of Education can control priorities for its own fields. A second issue, the path to my house is covered by an easement, and this is a path that all the students take, limiting use to students attending school. Expanded use promotes traffic into the night hours, violating the terms of the easement and impacting me. Over the 43 years, the path has had severe problems involving attorneys and the town council. I guess some of them are vandalism. My daughter was threatened with a knife on my property. My 18-month-old son was hit by a bicycle. I had a major house burglary in which the path was used as an escape route, several other burglaries, and so forth. A school rear gate left open during school hours was repeatedly vandalized. The neighborhood likes having the path open. I accept occasionally having to pick up garbage and minor vandalism, but I don't want to go back to the problems that I had before, especially night traffic on the easement and drinking on the bridge. Schoolyard use needs to be accompanied by discussions of how to manage use of the path. Okay, 1 sentence. Please reject the proposed combining of town and Board of Education services until we have an idea of how expectations will be realized and funded. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Terry Brennan, 862 Rawway Avenue. Turf and lights at Edison or keep things as they are. It's the ultimate false choice, but that's the choice the town government has forced on us all. Everyone on both sides of the Edison Fields debate wants more and better fields for the children of Westfield. That is not what this vote is about. This vote is about artificial turf filling an entire schoolyard. I am so sick of being falsely pitted by the town against the coaches and athletes of Westfield. It's shameful. It's a divide and conquer tactic. I applaud all the high school kids who have been at these meetings, but what about every future Edison student and their parents, most of whom that I've spoken to oppose this plan but can't be at these meetings because they can't find weeknight babysitters, or they're worried their kids might be retaliated against by the sports leagues. I kid you not. There's a lot of that. To these kids here, I say, we all truly want more and better fields for you. And you would already be playing on brand new fields had Mayor Brindle not canceled the plans for the new fields in Tamaulipas Park 5 years ago. You are now being forced by the town to be in a political battle over an extremely divisive Edison plan. To this board, I say, the scientific research regarding artificial turf is heading in a very bad direction. The city of Boston just enacted a moratorium on artificial turf due to its toxic PFAS forever chemicals. This board has received letters from the Children's Environmental Health Center at Mount Sinai in Manhattan and the National Center for Health Research, both warning of the consequences of exposure to artificial turf. And a former EPA official was recently quoted in the press as saying it's only a matter of time before artificial turf is banned by the EPA. If this board votes yes on the Edison Fields proposal, exposure 5 days a week to the toxins and carcinogens in artificial turf will become a requirement in order to get a public school education on the south side of Westfield. Contrast that with the voluntary exposure for just a few hours a week that club sport athletes would have. Furthermore, your own curriculum for second graders asks, how can people be responsible citizens in taking care of our environment? Your grade 3 curriculum asks, how can we balance the need for economic growth and the preservation of a healthy environment? Your grade 5 curriculum asks, how do the environment and natural resources contribute to the preservation and development of culture? Then you send half the town to middle school to look out the window and watch almost 6 acres of natural space being destroyed. Please do the right thing and ask the town to upgrade Edison with properly constructed and maintained natural grass fields, irrigation, and drainage. If the town is foolishly married to new artificial turf, there's a specific town-owned site in Tamaqua Park that would not disrupt anybody and would provide almost 3 times the new field time that Edison would. Thank you. I'm sorry for going a little bit over.
Hi, Kristen Wilson, 13 Normandy Drive. I also wanted to just share a few thoughts on the Edison proposal. One is that whether someone is for or against the artificial fields at Edison, I think we can all agree that the Spiesel parking contention, that people are going to park at Lincoln and walk to Edison, is absurd. It's never going to happen. The streets around Edison, many without sidewalks, are going to be a hazard with cars parked all over. And it's not just parking. Many of us parents are shuttling multiple kids around, and so we're not staying, we're just dropping off. We need a way to do this safely. And the area around Edison is already a hazard. It can't handle being the centralized location for more events. We need to either spread these fields around town or put them in a central location like the unused area at Tamaqua Park, where a safe parking and drop-off solution can be engineered from the start, not shoehorned into an already too congested area. On a related note, I am wondering, why are we not able to see the report from Union County regarding putting fields at Tamaqua Park before the decision is made about Edison? Ripping up acres of grass at a schoolyard is not a decision to take lightly, and I truly believe that none of you take this decision lightly. But before we even consider moving ahead with the Edison plan, why would we not, 1, figure out what's possible at Tamaqua Park, and 2, seriously consider well-designed, well-maintained natural grass fields? That would be a lot less expensive and a lot healthier for our kids. And also, I've noticed multiple times this fall as I'm driving my youngest to soccer practice at the grass fields at Unami Park in Garwood, I'm passing Sycamore Field, also natural grass, and it's empty. This says to me not that we don't have the fields, but that we haven't made the effort to properly design, install, and maintain what we have. Not just grass seed, but proper drainage and irrigation. Also, I believe the research hasn't yet caught up with the use of artificial turf for children and teens, and that it is very likely that down the road, when more is known about the impact of toxic chemicals in artificial turf, that we would regret putting more of it at Edison. If that time comes, are we going to say, if you went to Roosevelt, no worries, but if you went to Edison, oops, sorry? How is that equitable? I know you've all received letters from 2 doctors with impeccable credentials, Dr. Sarah Evans and Dr. Diana Zuckerman. Both adamantly discouraged you and the town council from installing more artificial turf at Edison. Unlike the artificial turf suppliers who stand to make a lot of money, these experts have nothing to gain other than wanting to see kids safe and healthy. Why would we not heed their warnings? We all want better fields, but this plan being presented by the town as the only option is not in fact the only option, and it's certainly not the best one. Thank you.
Good evening. I am Megan Brennan, 862 Rahway Avenue. I have 5th grade twins who will attend Edison next year. My children have played various sports on town fields throughout the years, and my husband has coached in town, including for the WSA. I know we need better quality fields, and more of them. That is indisputable. When I first learned about Mayor Brindle's proposal to lease all of the usable green space behind Edison School for $1 for 30 years, I thought it was so ludicrous that it could never happen. Spending $9 million to replace 6 acres of natural ecosystem with 50,000 pounds of plastic grass and 500,000 pounds of ground-up tires on a schoolyard that is across the street from an existing artificial turf field is just a bridge too far for me. I know all too well how overtaxed this area is already. The traffic congestion and pedestrian danger in front of Edison is very real and well documented. To my mind, that is reason enough to reject the proposal. As a professional pollster, I was curious to dig into the town's master plan survey. The statistically valid part of that survey showed only 19% of Westfield residents selected artificial turf fields as a priority. As such, I would argue that the support for artificial turf you are seeing in this room is not necessarily a fair representation of the town's residents. There's an easy way to find that out, though. Put it on the ballot. Westfield already has more artificial turf than the fair sample of 45 comparable towns in the mayor's master plan. There are very good reasons why the mayor of Boston has ordered no new artificial turf fields can be installed in city parks, and that Maplewood residents have twice rejected proposals to replace green space with artificial turf. All artificial turf is made with toxic compounds that emit high levels of methane, a potent greenhouse gas. Turf sheds microplastics and other chemicals into waterways, such as the creek that would be right next to the proposed fields. I find it the height of hypocrisy that people advocating for artificial turf in this town dare to call themselves environmentalists. I too was a student athlete growing up. I feel the way I do now because I want all of the students in this district for generations to come to have a healthy, safe environment. I also want there to be equity for Westfield students from both sides of town. I recently went over to Roosevelt School to look at their fields and open green space, including their new nature path. I think the students on the south side of town deserve an equally bucolic outdoor space. Edison students already attend gym classes on artificial turf, while Roosevelt students do not. This is already not an equitable experience for students from the north and south sides of town. If you vote to go through with the Edison field projects, you will be furthering that inequity. Westfield School District Policy 1523 states in part that the Board of Education will identify and correct inequitable policies affecting its facilities and its students. For this reason, among all the others I have stated, you must not let this inequitable situation proliferate. Thank you for your service to Westfield students and families.
Thank you.
My name is Steve McCabe. I live at 409 Washington Street, Westfield. It's approximately 2.5 blocks from Edison School. Our three sons played youth sports. They played sports for the high school. And I just wanted to tell the board that often in publications such as the Westfield Leader, this discussion is placed in a background of the mayor and the council versus the local residents. My block, every person on my block I've spoken to is in favor of these practice fields. I also think it's very important to recall the obvious fact that a lot of the people so far in favor of the thing say that these are practice fields. They're not sports fields. It's not Democracy Park. It's not the park behind Roosevelt. Practice fields are used for daily play, day after day after day after day. I'm in favor of this. All of the people on my block are in favor. I'm not denigrating whatsoever anybody who opposes this for other reasons. But the people who have the lawn signs have lawn signs. Don't assume that anybody who doesn't have a lawn sign is either in favor or not in favor. On my block, every person I've spoken to is in favor of these practice fields. And I hope you will give consideration to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Steve Kircher, 791 Knollwood Terrace. I'd like to come at this from a bit of a different angle. Value, stewardship, and duty to one's constituents, that will be the focus of my address to you this evening. Based on all the talk from the mayor, athletic personnel, and sports teams, we need more fields, specifically more turf fields with stadium lights. Our kids deserve them. Our fields are subpar. I've even heard the word embarrassing thrown around. I guess field space in densely populated Westfield is a valuable asset. Does the BOE receive value giving away Edison fields for $1 a year for 30 years? Would you rent your home to somebody for $1 a year for 30 years? Of course you wouldn't. Allowing public property, how we deal with public property, has to be done at a higher level of consciousness than even how we would execute that due diligence on our own personal property. Don't be shy about demanding out value for assets. Aaron Judge doesn't play for the Yankees for free. Corporate employees don't work for their employers for free. New York Transit charges valuable parking space at the train station. Speaking of that, you can expect to pay $636 to $700 per year for a parking spot at the train station. The typical parking spot has about 320 square feet. That equates to $1.98 per square foot. This is how Westfield and New Jersey Transit values yearly rental space in Westfield. So the EIS project will cover approximately 6 acres, equating to 261,360 square feet. At $1.98 per square foot, the BOE should be paid at a minimum $517,488 per year. Now, I'm a generous guy, so I didn't build interest into that. I believe your constituents, taxpayers, students, and teachers deserve a BOE that is a good steward, a fiduciary of budgets, facilities, and students. And I believe that the BOE wants to be good stewards. I'm asking you to act on what you certainly know is true, that a fair value is a fair ask. Budget season is coming. More pilot deals in Westfield will remove tax revenues that would be available to schools. And there are some employees that have been laid off due to budget shortfalls that most certainly, if available and desirable, would like the opportunity to come back. I would bet $517,488 a year makes a lot of things possible. You can pay a lot of bills with $517,000 a year. It is in the best interest of the board, its constituencies, and its budget, and the BOE deserves a fair price for the 30-year property rental or lease from the town of Westfield. Do not allow your students, yourselves, your constituents to be taken advantage of or treated unfairly, and demand a fair price at a minimum for the use of the EIS fields. Thank you.
Hi, how are you? I'm Kelly Hantman. This is my husband.
And Dave Hantman.
635 Radley Road, Westfield. I'm actually so happy to be here today. I'm on the board of the PAL, and I don't know if you know, but we started this season, the first ever in our town, Girls Flag Football League. We are so excited, and we have 224 girls playing in our first season. Why do we only have 224 girls, you ask? You guessed it. I went to John Dugan last fall. I said, hey, John, my daughter plays in the co-ed league. There's 750 kids in the co-ed league, 25 girls. My daughter was a third grader at the time playing in the co-ed league. I said, what about a girls flag football league? He said, Kelly, I love it. Great idea. But there's a problem. What's the problem, John? Field space. Where are the girls going to play? Truthfully, that broke my heart. I'm a girl who's determined this was going to happen. I was going to make this happen. We worked together. We figured it out. We worked tirelessly this summer trying to figure out the maximum amount of girls that can play. We capped it at 13 per team. Only 7 girls get on the field at a time. Do you think we left it at 13? No. Overflow of registration. We capped it at 14. We have parents calling us every single week to ask if their daughter can join. Week 1, week 2, week 3, even this week, we got another call. Our wait list is going on and on. What is our limitation? Field space. So I speak to you today from a different angle. I've been at a couple of meetings. I haven't heard this angle, but I'm talking to you about equity for women in sports. We are often the last ones to join. Girls flag football, we're one of the first leagues in New Jersey. My goal this year is to spread it all throughout New Jersey. Girls should play. If 224 girls show up in the first year, what is that saying about this sport? Also on our board, joined this year, is PAL field hockey. They also have some field space that they were able to secure, but their wait list, I think it was within a day, they had a wait list in a day, girls field hockey, because it's a new upcoming sport for girls. Closed wait list, why? Field space. So we ask you, we implore you to think about, I heard someone speak today, a resident, about equity. Well, equity for girls, equity for women. I don't want when Westfield High School decides that they're ready for the intramural flag football team, the Jets and Nike have 60 teams in New Jersey playing. Do you think our girls want to play here? They do. They do. We have teens coming out. We have men, women coming out. They want to play. So I implore you to really consider and approve this project, not only for the young girls, for the teens, and for our high school girls in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Julie Steinberg, 109 Belmar Terrace. So let me start off by saying we are not a sports family. My kids do not do sports. We are not in leagues. There's no varsity, no summer leagues. My husband is a runner, not a team joiner. A brief stint in Ultimate, which was muddy at Jefferson. In short, I have no personal skin in the game here in terms of how the Edison field affects us directly. If anything, it takes away time and resources from the issues that do more directly affect me, issues that I've spoken to you about before. But I see how Edison and the other fields, not just Edison, but the fields that the BOE does have control over, impact our town, my neighbors, and our schools. I root for the families on my block when their kids do well. I'm happy when we win swim and soccer and other recognitions for the hard work that our athletes do. And I care about my neighbors. So let me just say that my number one concern that I see when we get our annual ratings always goes to the subsection on infrastructure, regardless of how poorly or well constructed those ratings are. It's always about infrastructure. Our buildings, our parking, including handicap parking, the state of our classrooms and whether or not they're ready to, one, accommodate the number of kids that are there, and please, no population studies. We are doing more now than we did 20 years ago or even 10 years ago. Every inch of space is begged, borrowed, and stolen from. ADA requirements, it's all a problem with infrastructure, and so are the fields. I further would say the capacity sadly is exceeded, and not just because of the athletes in town, but because of the leagues in towns, both adult and children. And the issue doesn't just affect the leagues. I know that the students that play off fields are very much affected. The indoor teams, the teams that play on courts, they're affected too. Infrastructure is a problem, a bigger problem for this BOE and for the town for that matter, in part because we share it. I am sometimes shocked by the conditions. I am a Jefferson parent. It is a lake about a third of the year on those fields. And it's expensive to maintain them, which is probably why the lease proposal from the town is generous and helpful, because it's expensive to maintain those. And there's only so many custodial staffs, and it is the responsibility of this BOE to maintain them. I also feel for the local families who are affected by this directly, and they need to be heard. Those who live close to the school are impacted here, as they are every back to school, every weekend game, every graduation. But most importantly, I'm sad to hear how divisive things have become. I'm grateful we have a town that tried to work with you and tried to coordinate with the BOE and has been very transparent both there and in the master plan.
Time's up. Thank you.
Hi, Jennifer Gilman, 1750 Florida Street. I am also the chairwoman of the Westfield Recreation Commission, but I am here as a parent. I have a 7th grader at Edison and a 5th grader at Jefferson. I'm also a very involved volunteer. I'm on the PTO board at Jefferson. I've been attending PTC meetings for over 6 years, and I have heard about all of the budget woes you've had. I'm really thankful you're switching to the April budget vote and changing the process of how you're going about doing it. I did not know Julie was going to be talking about infrastructure, because this is actually where I'm coming back to. You just don't have the money to make the infrastructure improvements that have kind of not been done for years. There's a ton of catch up for buildings that need to be done, whether it is to accommodate an eventual full day kindergarten or grading classrooms. I'm not sure the last time Jefferson has had a facelift, true facelift. We've piecemealed things together. So when we're talking about field improvements or those kind of non-academic infrastructure improvements, I can't imagine that they're at the forefront of Westfield Board of Ed budget talks right now. So the Edison Field project would benefit all of the students currently using the field right now, and it would kind of help take a little load off of the vast list that you have in terms of the infrastructure improvements in front of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Luke McCricky. I live on 517 Clifton Street in Westfield. So I play lacrosse for the high school, and I just want to cover some of the arguments and facts that the people against the turf field are making. So I want to start with the fact that some people are saying turf causes sickness, and this is reportedly a made-up fact. The Consumer Product Safety Commission says that, and I quote, "There is no elevated health risk from playing on artificial turf. Pesticides and fertilizers used for the treatment of the grass are shown to cause cancer, and the runoff would contaminate the drinking supply in local creek. The fertilizers would cause global warming, not the turf." To continue, I want to cover traffic concerns. There is traffic already coming in and out of the town from players having to travel, making the commute much harder. If the traffic remains in a single area, then this will only reduce traffic in the remainder of Westfield. I also want to point out that they chose to live there. The house prices are much cheaper near a school, so they shouldn't be complaining if light from the lights is in their room. If anything, offer them a slight tax break. In addition, there has been some worries over turf maintenance. The cost for maintaining the grass would be significantly higher due to the constant irrigation and care, which would raise costs and taxes compared to the turf, which has changed every decade or so. In the last board meeting, there was talk about having a grass manager, and that would be a significantly higher price, which would only raise taxes. Maintenance is little to none on turf, so there won't be loud lawnmower machines and heavy machinery taking care of the grass every day, and simply kids having fun, since turf doesn't need much maintenance. I want to cover the park, why the park shouldn't be used to have a turf field. The whole area is situated around sports. With Keller right there, and an ugly rundown field behind Edison, it would be a no-brainer. Also, the congestion would only get worse at our parks and take away from the beauty with the constant cars and whistles. Some of the speakers up here claim that they are for beauty of our schools, but want to put up this field in our beautiful spacious park where actual wildlife habitats exist. EIS is located right next to Keller. We have trainers and the athletic facilities. While some of you guys are complaining about the location, we believe that it's time for change. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ryan Waldman. I live on 12 Bates Way, and I'm a captain of the varsity lacrosse team. I'd like to start by talking about the need for more fields in the town. In the spring, we share the field with the track team and the girls lacrosse team, and I would say probably around 3 times a week. We have to travel to fields outside of Westfield just to get our practice in. This takes a lot of time out of our day, and it's expensive for the fields, and there are no trainers on the site, and it takes away from our quality of practice because we're not practicing on the field we use for games. In addition to that, on days that one of us 3 teams aren't hosting a game or event, we split the turf time, only getting an hour of field practice, while other towns get hours of full field practice. This gives them an advantage because they get more reps than we do, and ultimately they get more practice than we do. We need these turf fields, and we need them behind Edison. We already have our locker rooms at Keller, the training room with all the trainers is at Keller. It makes the most sense to have our fields here. We also need the fields to be turf. With the amount of athletes that will be playing on these fields, maintaining grass fields to the same standards of professional leagues will be impossible. In a sport like lacrosse or football, where a lot of sharp cuts are made, the grass is going to get ripped up and the maintenance will be impossible. We need turf so we can have high quality of practice. Lastly, we need the lights. Competing against other towns is hard enough, but when they have lights and all their teams are getting more practice than we do, it makes it really hard. If we had teams that could practice longer because we could stay on the field until the lights go out, not when the sun sets, this will help not only lacrosse or football or soccer, but also the marching band and the color guard and all sports and activities across the high school. We need these turf fields because they will give us more opportunities, they'll save time, they'll save us money, and they'll help the student athletes at Westfield. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ronald Allen, 118 North Scotch Plains Avenue. And so tonight I'm standing as Executive Director of the Westfield PAL. First and foremost, you guys are caught between a rock and a hard place. For 39 years, I've been the Executive Director of the PAL, and this has always been a problem. We've had opportunities to resolve it, but then it kind of just became cold feet and thrown to the back burner. When we look at it, it's twofold. The high school level, a number of sports that are going on, they're fantastic with the number of kids that are involved. Those are the numbers that we need to look at, because all of the league sports that are going on in town are only feeding those programs more and more and more. To be in a town like this, let me tell you, we're number one compared to, I've traveled all over this country, being on the board of directors of National PAL, I've seen what's gone on. We definitely need to do something about this. The turf field would probably be more advantage for us to be able to have a number of teams to get on there, practice, lights, all of that stuff. Whether there is some harm of the factor of what the turf does, well, then maybe we need to get good turf and make sure that what we get is the best that we can have. But I do know we need to stop messing around and get this taken care of as soon as possible. We need to make sure that our kids are first and foremost, that our kids are taken care of, that all that we do is looking out for our kids. We want to make sure that they have everything that they need. We watched all of that stuff there, education-wise, and those of you that are sitting here that know me know that I was proponent of the DARE program. I started it in town. I run a after-school program here at the high school. I make sure education goes along with sports. I also was a varsity coach for girls basketball for 13 years. For $0 every year I got paid, and I did it until I decided not to. But what we need to do is come together with the town, make sure everybody knows what's going on. The field is important for us overall, for our kids, for everything that goes on in this town. Again, we just need to make sure we do it with due diligence. We do everything that's possible. We make the best decision, because as I've known over the years, 39 years of the executive director, I grew up in this town. I played behind Edison. We used to have to go and pick up the rocks off the field and throw them before we play. All we want to do is make sure what we get is the best possible thing. So I just want you to know that we support the turf field, and we'll do whatever we can to help you guys if you do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim Eaton, 762 Knollwood Terrace. We expect the vote on the Edison Field Plan will happen soon. If this plan is voted in, it will be a complete travesty. It needs to be voted down. Current and future parents of children at Edison School need to be aware of the safety, health, and environmental issues associated with artificial turf and tower lights. Number one, chemicals like lead and PFAS in artificial turf are known to cause cancer and other diseases. Number two, with 250,000 square feet of artificial turf, children could potentially spend recess and gym class on a chemical-ridden surface. Number three, artificial turf emits toxic gases and sheds particles which can be inhaled. Number four, the environment, including soil and water, will become contaminated. Contamination will flow downstream in the brook adjacent to the field. Number five, the turf is not recyclable and needs to be replaced every 8 to 10 years. Number six, non-contact injuries will increase. Abrasions and burns are common. The NFL Players Association has petitioned against artificial turf fields. The experts who have spoken or whom we have identified as having researched these issues extensively and warned us of these health concerns have no agenda other than the safety of the children and other users of the field. From a location standpoint, to burden this location with a quasi-outdoor lighted stadium with increased activity, including night games and practices, will cause more traffic, more congestion, less safety, more noise, overflow of parking onto neighborhood streets, and reductions in quality of life and property values in the neighborhood. Zoning laws in Westfield do not allow structure additions or exterior alterations which will depreciate property values. This is directly applicable to the Edison Field Plan and surrounding neighborhoods. These zoning laws need to be enforced. A much better alternative to the Edison Field Plan with its artificial turf and tower lights is natural, organic grass fields at multiple locations, including Roosevelt, Tamaqua, Elm, Memorial, Sycamore, Westfield High, and others, and hiring a professional field manager with enhanced administration of irrigation, aeration, seeding, fertilizing, and drainage. The favorable outcomes will be less downtime of the fields, more durability of the fields to handle increased activity, safer and healthier fields, no tower lights needed, and extra field capacity goals achieved, which is everyone's goal. The CME report did not review the entire field situation in Westfield under a professional field management approach. It only looked at Edison, a very limited and incomplete analysis. In addition, the report described only a small exposure of toxic chemicals and artificial turf, which is not accurate based upon our experts' analyses. Please vote down the plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brian Crawford. I live at 795 Knollwood Terrace. I'm the father of a sixth grader at Edison Intermediate School and a junior at Newark Academy. If I didn't know better, I'd think this was a Board of Athletics meeting and not a Board of Education meeting. But I'll get back to that. I do want to say one thing I don't think I've heard people say, and I wanted to say thank you. As a PAL parent for many years, both in soccer, football, and basketball, I really want to thank you for letting us use your facilities. It is never lost on me that when we were there, we are your guests. All right, we're not entitled to use your fields. We are your guests. And I just want to be mindful of that and say thank you. I was very happy to receive an email today from the board about the upcoming strategic planning process for our schools. Really happy to see that the district has engaged the Madison Institute for this process, and I really look forward to participating in the process. As Dr. Gonzalez states in the email, the district's strategic plan will serve as a 5-year blueprint that clearly defines our priorities and our vision for ensuring the success of all of our students. It is a demonstration of Westfield Public Schools District's sincere and continued commitment to the entire school community. So it begs the question, why would the Board of Ed consider a 30-year lease of school property before it had the opportunity to put its 5-year blueprint together? Do you all have some sort of time machine that you already know that the lease will be aligned with what that blueprint comes out to say? What other business organization or public organization would ever consider making a 30-year commitment before understanding if it aligns with the strategy for the next 5 years? If I did that in my business, I'd get fired. How will you explain to the Commissioner of Education, who has to sign off on a lease over 5 years, how you got here? How does it support the school system? How does it support our education goals? So how are you going to explain that? How will you explain this to the School Ethics Commission related to these ethical standards? I will make decisions in terms of the educational welfare of children and will seek to develop and maintain public schools that meet individual needs of all children, regardless of their ability, race, creed, sex, or social standing. I will recognize that the authority rests with the Board of Education and will make no personal promises nor take any private action that may compromise the board. I will refuse to surrender my independent judgment to special interest, or partisan groups up on Boulevard, not Broad Street,
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Time is up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Vote no, please.
I'm Jan Onishi, 759 Knollwood Terrace. Good evening. I am not a public health expert, but I am a research scientist who knows how to read scientific literature. I have read the CME report. And briefly, there are two concerns that were not addressed in the report. First of all, the infill made from chrome rubber contains chemicals that in test tube experiments have carcinogenic activity and disrupt endocrine function. It is critical to understand that these are red flag warnings for research scientists, and they should be red flag warnings for all of us. Follow-up experiments using animal models or human clinical studies are warranted. These studies have not been completed. You cannot conclude that it is safe for young children to play repeatedly over time on these types of artificial fields when key research experiments have not been completed. The second question I had from the report. They mentioned that there are good alternatives to chrome rubber as infill. There is less known about infill materials made from alternative products from plant materials or plastics. Infill made from recycled plastic products exposes the children to microscopic plastic particles. The particles can be ingested or inhaled. Results from an animal model show that the inflammation can occur with ingestion, and this was from a reputable scientific journal, peer-reviewed. These results indicate that certainly further study is warranted on the effects of inhaling or ingested small nanoparticles of plastic. 2 public health groups have developed lists of protective hygienic actions to take after playing on artificial turf. Few of these actions can be taken when children return to school after playing on the artificial field during school hours. Both of the public health experts that you have received letters from, Dr. Zuckerman and Dr. Evans, have advised that children be spit infill particles out. Do not swallow them. It's obvious that infill particles can be ingested somehow. You have copies of my literature review materials. If you have any questions, it's not too late to get the answers to any questions you might have about effects of artificial turf on children's health, both short and long term. The health of Westfield children who attend Edison over the next 30 years depends on whether you permit the town to install artificial turf, or rather, natural grass on school grounds. Natural grass can be maintained as an athletic field, and I thank you for your attention and your service also.
Thank you.
Hello, Anthony Scaglione, 543 Washington Street. I was going to start off with, you're about to hear a parade of kids come up here and make pleas in support of Edison's school project, and then one of them comes up here and proved my point about being uninformed and sometimes selfish. Uninformed in having no clue what organic maintenance is, uninformed in knowing what a trade study is, and how saving money on one part can allow you to pay for a field manager for 20 years and still save money. Uninformed about DDT, cigarettes, asbestos, lead paint, and how they were acceptable within our lives until we found out that they cause cancer and whatever else. But that's okay for a student. He's a teenager. There are parents out there that are uninformed about this stuff and are willing to put the kids at risk, and also willing to affect the quality of life of the people who live near the area. To say that, oh, the lights are shining in your window, tough luck. You know, you decided to live there. Well, we decided to live there before this whole project was done. So to get back to what I was going to say, it's forgivable for a teenager, it's not forgivable for parents, and it's definitely not forgivable for you guys who are going to make this decision. You need to be informed, and I don't think you have been, because I know all the questions we've asked, we haven't got answers to. The question is, what is a trade study, and have they been done properly? What about re-engineering the grass fields all over town? And how can that save money compared to the lifetime expectancy over 30 years of what the artificial turf costs? You better know the answer to that before you vote, because if you don't, you're making an uninformed vote. The CME study was a joke. It did not take into account one project at Edison versus doing all the fields in the town. And there have been, we have financial people come up, we've had engineering people come up, we've had scientists come up, PhDs. And there's evidence that the studies show that you can save money by doing grass fields everywhere instead of concentrating everything in one neighborhood that's already overstressed. So that meeting you're going to have with the town council has to be public. We need to hear it. We need to hear the questions you're going to ask, because if you're not asking the right questions, you're not getting the right facts, and then you'll make an uninformed vote. And that's not what we want. There are so many questions that are unanswered. You know, how much field time is needed? The high school plays till 6 o'clock or behind the Edison already. How much incremental field increases are you going to get for the money that's going to be spent? If you don't have the answers to all these questions, and we need to hear them in public when they're being asked, you're making an uninformed vote if you vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Nuno Rodriguez, 1219 Boulevard. I wrote some notes, so forgive me for just trying to read them. Hopefully I didn't have a lot of typos. So I'm a father of three, one of which is in high school, one of which is at Edison, and one of which is at Jefferson. I want to just take some points here that were discussed. So the first gentleman that came up talked about transparency. Absolutely. All for it. I think that we have transparency. We just doubt the studies. I can't imagine that a firm would jeopardize their reputation by putting together an opinion based on their evaluation and have been bought or somehow been coerced into doing that. I just can't imagine somebody would jeopardize their business just to please whomever we think that they're pleasing. This project started 16 months ago, June of 2021. It's just dragging on. It's just dragging on. We need to make a decision. I implore you to make a decision, and my ask is that you vote yes. I'd like to understand how we can diminish the Edison project and the health concerns, but then in the same breath we suggest that the town go put it at Tamaquas Memorial, which they control. I don't understand that suggestion. It seems a little hypocritical to me. I also don't understand why the same folks, and I respect their opinions, are up here talking about the risks of turf, but they're not picketing and demanding that we go across the street and rip Keller up, and then move on to the other turf locations in town, and then take that same desire and that same energy and rip up all the turf in Union County and the rest of the state. I don't see that. I think it's about location, and I can respect that, but let's not circumvent what it truly is about by throwing in other deflection. As far as the other gentleman that talked about the benefit, the last time I checked, there is no Board of Ed unless you have our students whose parents pay taxes. It's that simple. And if you're leasing it for $1 a year, and those same students are the benefactors, there's your value. Last time I checked, the Board of Ed is a non-for-profit organization. You're not here to charge $500,000 of rent to your town. You're here to do what's best for your students. And you've heard from those students. Additionally, all of the third-party mentions, of which I'm part of the WSA, it's the same students, the same kids. Many of you on this board I know personally because our kids have played together. They share these spaces together. The future generations will share these spaces together. So it's not for the benefit of some other party that's coming in from another town. It's our kids. The Boston statement, and I'm running out of time, was not accurate. Immediately after that mayor made that announcement, a city official came out and said, and I quote, "The city has a preference for grass plane services. So does everybody in the world, self-included."
Thank you.
But it's just not possible. Thank you very much.
Hi, Jen Crawford, 795 Knollwood Terrace. So yes, this has been going on for 16 months, and there's a lot of opinions on all different sides, and there's a lot of different things to look at. But from the most simplistic position, nobody's talking about Edison kids. They're the ones that are being impacted by this. So there are benefits to a lot of people, but we need to talk about the kids that are 11, 12 years old that will no longer have any grass to play on at all. And I keep hearing, well, we have Keller. Well, that's the point. We already do have Keller. We already have turf. And so now we're just taking the remaining grass and saying, you guys don't get anything. And that's where I have a problem with it. I'm not going to come up here and say I'm anti-turf. My kids play football. I get it. But I do think we have to look at balancing all of this across the town. And that's not to say take it out of my backyard. It's just to say every school should have some element of natural grass. It just should. And we know that there's benefits to that. And I really just hope we focus on those kids. This is a decision, you guys know, it's for life. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a 30-year. Once you put turf down, the reason nobody's asking to pull turf up, it's expensive, it's really hard. So this is really a lifetime decision. And so what you're saying, if you vote yes, is never again will any Edison kids have grass to play on. So please just think about those kids as well. And thank you for everything.
Thank you. Thank you all. Rod Carolyn, 897 East Broad Street. I am parent coach. I'm on the Westfield board, the lacrosse board for the men's program. And I'd like to thank you all for your time. I don't envy any of your positions. As you can see, there's both sides to this argument, and you guys wanted this role. You got it. So good luck with your decisions. From a coaching standpoint, I also utilize the fields in some adult leagues. Everyone's talked about it ad nauseum. We're bursting at the seams. I was very, very happy to hear how many girls are playing PAL football. I think it's one of the coolest things. It's going to add to the space problems, but as it was so eloquently put, that's fantastic, but we need to find something to do with that. The grass fields, I'm a traditionalist. I love college football. I love the look of playing on grass. I love all of these things. I don't think the Board of Ed has the capacity to maintain those, utilizing the fields we see. Our fourth grade football team this Saturday in a walkthrough, we can only use those fields at Edison for a walkthrough. You can't run on them because they're so lumpy and awful, kids will get hurt. A 9-year-old kid twisted his ankle and was out of the game Sunday. He wasn't even running, he was walking. And I thought, I saw he was okay first, then I laughed to myself and said, these fields really are not suitable. So the second point I'll bring up, my youngest son goes to the YMCA for daycare. I would drive by every morning to drop him off the tennis court that's right across from the Board of Ed building. Not you guys, but whoever you guys are can't even maintain that. These poor senior citizens who were playing pickleball frequently had weeds that were a foot high, and people were walking there. I called over there a couple days, and finally someone went out and did it. I don't even play pickleball, but I said to myself, this is crazy. It's right across from the administration building, and we have foot-high weeds. If we can't maintain that, we're never going to maintain these grass fields. So I do respect everyone's opinion here. I understand where everyone's coming from, but I strongly suggest if you could vote yes. There's been a lot of planning to this point. The other gentleman said, I've been waiting 38 years on this decision. I looked over at the high school students and I thought they're going to be a middle-aged man like myself if we keep that up when the decision comes down. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your efforts. And again, I don't envy your choice. As Abraham Lincoln said, you can't please everyone all the time. So good luck. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Maria Tadaro. I live at 758 Knollwood Terrace. I don't think I'm going to be able to get through everything I have to say in 3 minutes, but I'll do my best. I can appreciate that you are making a very difficult decision and that you're trying to consider the many viewpoints being presented. And one thing I can agree, and that we've said, is that we need better athletic fields. No one in Craft, no one has disputed that we should get better fields, more fields. So the question is not that. The question is how to accomplish that. I take exception to a few things that was said by some people. One comment that was recently made is that if people are against turf, then we should be advocating that we should rip out all the fields we have, the turf fields we have. I wish I had known back then of what I know now about synthetic fields, because I would have definitely have opposed those too. And I know it's unreasonable to now go and rip out the ones we have. However, it would be reasonable not to put in more of something that is toxic. When you consider the opinions being given, I think you need to consider who the experts are. And CME, they're engineers with experience in the design and installation of athletic fields. Their staff and the kids that spoke and the coaches that spoke tonight, they're not the doctors, the scientists, the researchers, and the academics that do have the knowledge and that can speak about the science behind that. So as you've been told, and as you've received letters from Sarah Evans, Dr. Diana Zuckerman, there are literally many other such doctors and experts who I think, if we consider what is the most important priority, which is the health of the children and the health and of our environment, those are the people we should be listening to. So I have here one more. I had to pick one out of about 8 that I had. Another such expert, Dr. Sarah Jean Royer. She is a postdoctoral research fellow with the Marine Biology Research Division of Scripps Institution of Oceanography in California. She's also the lead author of a groundbreaking study, The Production of Methane and Ethylene from Plastic in the Environment. Please let me have another 40 seconds, 30 seconds, please. She said, we already knew that greenhouse gases are released during the manufacturing of products such as synthetic turf. And now we have learned that greenhouse gases continue to be released while they're in their use and as they degrade. Specifically, we found that the breakdown of plastic represents a significant source of greenhouse gas pollution that is expected to increase, especially as more plastic is produced and accumulated in the environment. Plastic is made from petroleum, but our team has been the first to publish data and that the research has shown that the far-reaching implications for climate change, waste management, policy making, and our decisions as consumers. She said, given...
Your time is up. Thank you.
I knew I could, but anyway. All right, thank you very much. Thank you.
Jean Lemberg, 528 Grove Street. Artificial turf field proponents ask why residents who are advocating for the creation of high-quality natural grass athletic fields have not suggested ripping up Kaler Field and Houlihan Sid Fay. The old adage, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, applies to this situation. In order to build a new turf field, the existing natural grass is removed, along with the topsoil and subsoil. The remaining subsoil is heavily compacted, covered with truckloads of gravel, followed by a layer of padding, a plastic grass carpet, and finally infill, made from 50,000 ground-up tires. This process creates a dead zone that will not sustain plant life. To transform existing turf fields into high-quality natural grass fields would require carting away all the artificial turf components and starting from scratch, requiring significant amounts of time and money. Physical education classes are required by the New Jersey Department of Education, but joining school and private sports teams is a choice made by children and their parents. Half of Westfield students live on the south side of town and attend EIS during their middle school years. Why should they be expected to forego the well-documented benefits of green space in order to support the sports teams, especially when there are no plans to turf Roosevelt Intermediate School? Turf proponents claim that artificial turf enable the children at Edison to have PE classes and recess, and without it, students have to walk to Kaler Field or remain indoors when it rains. So I ask you, where do Roosevelt students have PE class and recess? Do they walk to Kaler Field? If plastic grass playing surfaces are so desirable, why aren't the parents of current and future Roosevelt students clamoring to have artificial turf installed at their children's schools? Children of all ages lament practicing and playing games in other towns, but those fields do not belong to the towns where they happen to be located. They are Union County fields that Westfield taxpayers help fund. Living in Westfield and playing on Union County fields is fiscally responsible. However, it is irresponsible to ignore the fact that artificial turf fields contribute to rising global temperatures and plastic pollution, especially when the town and school district claim to value environmental stewardship. Thank you so much, and like so many others, thank you for your service. I know this is a tough decision.
Thank you.
Hi, Greg Lemberg, 528 Grove Street. For months, I've heard a false narrative from advocates of the Edison project. They compare the grass school and town athletic fields in their current state of neglect with artificial turf as proof that grass fields will never work in Westfield. It's like comparing apples and bricks. It's also ironic that some of these same advocates for turf in Westfield are traveling a few miles out of town to Union County parks only to spend half the time practicing on grass fields. The issue is that what we have today are not athletic fields. They're schoolyards and parks that have been pressed into service for athletic activities. They were never constructed as athletic fields, and they are not maintained as athletic fields. Their poor condition is a direct result of a lack of investment in proper maintenance. They do not in any way represent real grass athletic fields in terms of safety, quality, durability, and rainout resistance. The starting point should be an investment in expertise, training, equipment, and inputs where athletic activities take place today. Tamaqua School, Roosevelt, Edison, and the high school all support Board of Education athletic activities and marching band and need significant investments. Why is that? Because the activities on those fields will continue into the future whether the Edison project moves forward or not. There seems to be a belief that the project will bring infinite capacity. In fact, the incremental capacity gained from the Edison project is shockingly small for a $9 million investment. It's almost zero for school activities, since that property is already used until 6 p.m. virtually every usable day of the year. We seriously don't believe that $9 million can accomplish well-maintained grass fields? Is that what we truly believe? So I ask you this, do we really think it's a good idea to tear up these 6 acres of natural ecosystem, install tens of thousands of pounds of plastic grass and hundreds of thousands of pounds of ground-up tires on a schoolyard and deprive Edison kids of the only green space that they have for at least the next 30 years, if not forever? These materials belong in a dump, not in a schoolyard. Once we do this, there is no turning back. The Board of Education owes all 6,000 Westfield students a better solution than this current proposal. I ask you first, please do no harm. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing no one else come to the podium, public comment is now closed. Dr. Gonzalez, would you like to address anything raised tonight?
No, I think we...
All right. Okay. Any comments from board members?
I have one.
Okay.
I've now heard publicly and also just speaking with people individually that there are Edison students that feel uncomfortable coming forward because of what their classmates might say. So if that's true, I'd like to encourage those students to email us directly, because I'd really like to hear from those students. I think it's important that we hear from the Edison administration, the teachers, and the students, and email would be a good way of doing that if you're not comfortable coming forward publicly. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. There's nothing else from board members. Motion to adjourn? Second, thank you, Leila. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned.